Yes.
Welcome to the Wisdom Factory. It's a forum for people who have knowledge, experience, and wisdom to share with the world. And we are in season 2, which is all about wisdom technologies. This is episode number 10. Okay. And today we have invited Saeed Dawlabani to share his understanding and wisdom about what's next in our economic system. And I'm sure we'll get a look at what has been going on in the past as preparation for what's next.
Okay. I will talk about the Wisdom Factory, which is hosted by our non-profit organization, which is called Paradiso Integrale, and we are in Umbria in Italy. And we are holding retreats here, and we offer guest rooms. And please stop by and see us, come and see us when you are between Rome and Florence.
If you're between Rome and Florence, you're not far from us. So
that's what I said, I guess.
Almost. I wanted to say it. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that we are deeply inspired by integral theory, by Ken Wilber's work, and that has opened our minds. I mean, independently, because I am confident, let's say, with Wilber's book since '97 and Mark a little later. Yeah. But, you know, it is like something new has opened. And what you always didn't understand, finally, you have the impression that things fall into place. And personally, we got to know by integral theory, let's say, because we met talking on social media about integral topics. So we are deeply grateful that it exists, and we are committed,
especially,
to bring it out into the world. And our personal website is thepowerofrelationship.com, and you see here also another website. I guess it is the wisdomfactory.de, where you can subscribe for our newsletter.
And get a free gift.
Oh yeah, a free gift too.
Yeah. Okay.
So
finally we get to talk about our guest a little bit.
We have forgotten. We have a community, the Wisdom Factory community on Google+, where we want to discuss further the topics we are having here in our shows, but also going through integral theory and whatever is connected, and talk about it in live community gatherings and written in the community. Go to the community, the Wisdom Factory, and ask for being admitted. Now
can
finally,
I? Okay,
finally,
right.
Okay, go.
Right. Well, today, as I said, we have Saeed Elias Dawlabani. He is a cultural economist, an author, and a public speaker. His most recent book, Memenomics, the Next Generation Economic System, has been compared to the works of Peter Lynch and Warren Buffett. He's a leading authority in the applications of the value systems framework to evolutionary economics and corporate change, and of practical value to us who aren't in those worlds, too. A former real estate developer, he's now dedicated to whole systems approaches for helping people and organizations reach their prime potential. He's also COO of the Center for Human Emergence Middle East, a think tank that frames the socio-political challenges facing the region through the prism of peace through human development, a sustainability approach for a prosperous and peaceful Middle East. Yeah.
So hello, Saeed.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Mark and Heidi.
Yeah. And I want to...
Wonderful to be with you.
Okay, thank you. I want to add that last week
Yes.
We were cross-talking. I said I want to add that last week we talked with your wife, Elsa Malouf, about the route to peace in the Middle East. And we recommend highly to the watchers, if you haven't seen it, go to our YouTube channel and watch it. It's really interesting.
Yes,
and still another word, we have another person here in the film strip, our good friend Ed, living nearby, whom we have so much talked about integral theory and all what we are about. So he came in with us, and he might ask some live questions. And you watchers out there, please ask your questions in the comment stream, and we will bring them up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that's at Langenkamp. Yes.
At Langenkamp.
Right. All right. So we can start, you know, and I don't know if you want to start by yourself, Said, or would you rather begin with a question?
I think I want to ask him a question.
You do?
I want to ask you a question.
Your way.
As we have written, this season is about wisdom technologies. What has wisdom technology, what is your wisdom technology concerning economics? And you must know I'm not really very economics knowledgeable about all these things. I'm a typical woman who leaves all these things normally at the man. So
don't you believe it? Don't you believe it?
Well, let me just say I'm not a trained classical economist. I come to economics from the technology that I use, which is the value systems approach to seeing the world. So the technology that I have was only created by Claire Graves, and that is the value systems framework, further enhanced by my friend and mentor, Dr. Beck, through spiral dynamics. And I combined the two, and with my own background in business, economics, and finance, I created my own framework that I call Memenomics. So basically what Memenomics is an evolutionary take on economic activity through the value systems prism. And that's really as simple as I can state the technologies that I use. I've worked with Dr. Beck for close to 12 years now, and you know, I started this work being, you mentioned it earlier, being part of the project that him and Elsa undertook in the Middle East. So for a while I was the COO of the Center for Human Emergence, but then in 2006, at the height of the housing crisis here in the States, Dr. Beck asked me to speak a little bit about the mimetic causes of what was going on with housing and the mortgage issue, the subprime and foreclosures and so forth. And so what was supposed to have been about a 20-minute introduction to how I viewed it through the lenses of spiral dynamics, the discussion evolved into a 2.5, 3 hour discussion about value systems and economics. And at the end of that session, you know, Dr. Beck said, unless you're busy building homes and making millions of dollars, drop everything you're doing and write a book about this. And here we are, you know, it's now 2015, you know, almost 2 years after the book has been out, and just sharing what I have to say and my views on how to reframe economics through value systems has really found a place in the world that views the current dysfunction that we have in our global economy and reframes it in evolutionary terms. So I'm happy to be here with you, and I can maybe share the most basic graphic that demonstrates how my framework views the global economy today. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah,
Mark, oh, okay.
Okay.
1 second, please. Now let me just switch the slides here.
Okay, in the meantime, while you are doing this, I want to welcome all our guests here who are watching live. I see Lawrence and Gold, I see Hendrik Bredmark, I see Vivek Bindoro Rao. I never can pronounce your second name. He is Vivek. Hi, Vivek.
Vivek.
There is Vink, and there's Margarita, Crystal Logos, here's Mel, then Brian McConnell is here, and then there are other people said they would come, like Anita F. and 10 others.
Okay.
Let me see. Scott said he would come. S. Reich, Douglas Wallach, Richard Weitz, Jochen Becker, Mark Davenport. Who is that?
I don't know. Some guy. What's he doing
Samadhi Institute, Joseph James, and co-creating Pananthropolis.
Pananthropolis.
So, welcome, welcome everybody, and please leave your questions and your messages.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now back to the slide that you had.
Yeah. I will bring them up, and you talk and tell us what. Okay.
So this is, are you looking at the global VMEM and the current paradigm on growth? Is that the slide that's being shown?
Knowledge economy, yeah, these are all the spheres.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, we're on the right slide. The presentation begins with a very complex slide. These are really out of some of the graduate training courses that I teach with Dr. Beck. So they presume that you're familiar with the spiral dynamics framework. But even if you're not, I can go over it in the simplest form possible. So basically, spiral dynamics says that there are a total of 8 value systems that are evolutionary systems that once you fulfill the values of one level, you ascend to the next level, and as you ascend up, you build more complexity and you build more resilience and consciousness, hopefully. So what I've done with my work is I've taken that general theory of value systems and I applied it to one general, or I should say one specific category called economics. And what you see in front of you here is a Memenomics spiral. It's not a value system spiral. It deals strictly with the economic dynamics around the world today. So the first ring at the bottom that you see on this graph, okay, shows the second level in the emergence of values. The first level doesn't have much of an economic system, so I didn't include it on the slide. The first level is the tribal values that we still have around the world today. What you see, the percentages in the middle of those spheres are the total percentage. The one that you really should pay attention to is the one to the right. The purple, or the second level system in the world today, is primarily identified by agriculture, simple trade, and services. The total GDP of that system that contributes to the total global output today is only about 3%. The next system above that is the red system. This is the value system of the egocentric and heroic values. That system is primarily represented by economies around the world that rely on more than 50% of GDP coming from natural resources. So you have the Middle East in there, you have most of the OPEC countries in there, most of the countries that are rich with natural resources in South America as well as Africa fall into that system. The next system up from that is the one where economics are centrally planned, and we know the economy that has those values today is China. Those are the everything that has to do with central planning and production is controlled by the government or a few people, but they're expressed through a communal system. It is the blue system where there is one true way of seeing things, and China's one true way today is to dominate global economics. They come to their economic values from that perspective of that central planning, and through central planning they'll be able to dominate the global economy. And that today only accounts for about 15% of total GDP. That is increasing at a rate of about 1.5% every year. So that really needs to be watched. We're beginning to see China now having to deal with the switch from the blue system to the orange system that is based on market forces, where there's less and less economic intervention. And if you've been watching the Shanghai Stock Exchange the last month or so, you have seen it drop in excess of 15%. I think there's a total of about $5 trillion loss in equity just in the last month, and that is simply because China is beginning to switch. It can no longer sustain economic policies that are made by central planning, the blue system. They need to switch to that orange system as quickly as possible, and they're beginning to see a lot of that dysfunction that happens in that change state between one value system or the other. The next stage up, and I know I'm maybe beginning to sound a little bit monotone, but since this is going to be available on the internet, you can just go back and play through every stage. The next system up is the orange system, which today accounts for the lion's share of GDP. This is where the West and Japan are. Okay? This is, unfortunately, has been identified, especially since Reaganomics dominated economic expression. This system has been identified by financial innovation. It still has the other complexities that come with the industrial age, but it's primarily defined by financial innovation. Again, that still claims the lion's share of global GDP today, 50 to 55%. The next system up is the green system. This is the system of egalitarian and humanitarian values. This is primarily represented today by the values of the internet, by the values of the digital age that have the directive, so to speak, to democratize information and resources. Okay, that is an important transition stage for capitalism to really understand the relationship between humanity and an artificial system such as capitalism. Till we really understand what the purpose of capitalism in humanity is, we can't transition to the next stage that is the last ring on up here, and that is economics of the second tier. The second tier is an entirely new system that's beginning to emerge. You're beginning to see some companies that identify with those values. And by the way, the rings represent the level of developmental complexity. They don't necessarily represent the percentage of GDP. Today, there is in capitalism, there is less than 1% of thinkers who belong in that system. It's beginning to emerge in corporations. It's beginning to emerge with companies that are members of the conscious capitalism movement, and at the helm of that is Whole Foods. It's beginning to emerge in the knowledge economy, and ahead of the learning curve in the knowledge economy are companies like Google. Okay, this is the direction that the future of economics is taking, and half of my book talks about what an economic system looks like that is designed from that 7th level system, from the big yellow ring that you see on this graph.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit what these values are and how it looks like in short?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, as I said, the spiral dynamics model or the value systems model proclaimed...
Excuse me, you could go out of the screen share so we can see you again?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And there I am. Okay. So the value systems model, which is spiral dynamics, which is really a wider view of where Memenomics gets its basic research from. The value systems framework says that there are a total of 8 known levels of human existence. The first level is the what Dr. Beck calls the beige level. He gave them colors just for the ease of reference, but it is the survival values. So the first level is do what you can to stay alive. Okay? As you solve the problems in that system, so when you develop better tools of survival, when you develop a better way to kill the beast and feast on it, you ascend into the next level of values, and that is the tribalistic existence. The tribalistic existence is known for its familial bonds, for its kinship, for its desire to seek safety in a group. The chief knows best. And it's a by the way, emergence alternates between what we call individualistic systems and communal systems. So the survival system was the first level of existence, As we solved the problems in that system, we emerged into a communal system that is a tribalistic system. Well then, after being a while in that communal system, some strapping young men pound their chest and say, hey, the chief doesn't know best. We will go out on our own. And with that starts their journey into the third level system, which is the one of egocentric and heroic values. This is really the bloodiest stage of emergence in humanity. I put up a videotape on this showing, people who ascend to the red system, and it's done historically. It's been done through a lot of bloodshed. This is what's going on in the Middle East now. Unfortunately, it will continue to go on till the culture itself reaches a point to say, no more of this, there has to be a better way. So they forego the values of impulsive need to exact their views and their impulsive ways of seeing things on the world, and they emerge into the next communal system, which is the blue system. The blue system is that of order-driven, the belief in one true way. There is only black and white. There are no gray areas in the blue system, but it's a very important layer, as Elsa might have talked about last week. It's a very important stage of development that builds institution. So really most of economic integration requires that a minimum stage of the blue system be developed in a culture, otherwise it will descend into corrupt hands. So the blue system is a very important system that develops institutions where you forego the power of the ego and people start believing in the power of the institution. That is a powerful developmental stage in the biopsychosocial model. Then as that system becomes burdensome, some enterprising individuals begin to think, hey, the government doesn't know best, the church doesn't know best. We are strategic thinkers. We can emerge into the next value system, and that is where the most of the West is today. It is in that fifth orange level system that believes in uncovering the mysteries of the world through quantitative analysis and scientific discoveries. It has brought us Adam Smith and capitalism. It has brought us the Industrial Revolution. It is now, the analysis I offer is that it's on its really last legs of expression as it becomes exploited by the lower systems. And the next natural stage for it to emerge to is the green system, where it's the sixth level of existence that has far more complexity than any of the lower systems that seeks egalitarian and humanitarian values. Okay? Now, for cultures who have preferences for the individualistic systems, like we do here in the States, we will quickly hopscotch to the green system on our way to the yellow system. Europe, especially after the end of World War II, has become had preferences to the communal systems. So they're primarily in green, or they seem to remain at the surface expression of green, not really wanting to move anywhere from that. So the next stage is obviously second tier, which is an entirely different ballgame to the values that have emerged so far. What second tier does, it begins to integrate the entire first tier. It tells everybody, from the heroic values to the ones who respect the law and order, who believe in the blue system, the orange system, the green system, that you all have to have room at the table. That is the only way for our culture to emerge into the future. But you can't bring your guns to the table. Every value system has its healthy and unhealthy expression. So it tells red, you can't bring your gun to the table, but we need your courage at the table. It tells blue that we don't need you to bring the priest abuses to the table, but we need you to have that sense of law and order and values of temperance to the table. It tells orange, we don't need your financial innovation that almost brought the world to near collapse in 2008, but we do need your scientific discoveries that are finding solutions for world problems. So that's what the yellow system does, and my book and my work is based on an approach from that 7th level yellow system. And I think I've taken way too longer than I should have been trying to explain.
No,
I would
okay.
like to highlight a little bit of the comments. There's Michael Thomas. His first comment said,
Textured layers.
Yeah. Oh no, this is Joseph James, but it's fine too. I'm interested in hearing your ideas of a better way. And Michael Thomas.
Is it coming up?
Yes, textured layers. Do you feel some government institutions are set up in a similar value systematical way? And then the next one with Scott, I put them all together. Scott is asking,
what is the role of I'll say that again. What is the role of transparency in second-tier economics? And I'm not sure which of these you'd like to respond to.
Let me first answer Scott's question,
okay.
and the answer to that is transparency is very important. It is part and parcel of what forces the lower tier systems to come from their healthy expressions, which is needed before anything else is done. If there were transparency in how the Greek government, for example, done their accounting, the problem would have been exposed to the EU at an earlier stage when it would have been okay to try to fix it and work with it. But the lack of transparency, and I'm not just talking about Greece, I'm talking about tremendous amount of corruption and behind-the-scene deals that take place all over the place. If there's transparency in those, it will force the perpetrators of that secrecy to change their ways. And so you have to have full and lean information about how certain systems and structures work in order for you to design effectively, and a big part of that is transparency. So, and I forgot what the other questions were, Mark.
We had a question about, where'd it go?
Michael Thomas?
Michael Thomas was asking about textured layers, question mark. Do you feel some government institutions are set up in a similar value systematical way?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he means by that question.
Yeah, and I think I get a gist of what he's trying to ask. Yes, this is the short answer to the first part is yes, this is a mosaic of values that you have to have functional balance depending on the indigenous needs of the country that you're designing for. You have to have a mosaic of values that is functional, that serves that society. So, for example, what's next for the Middle East is a blue system. A smart government, and that's what I call a government that designs for the 7th level. A smart government would choose to have competencies in people who can bring on the institutions of the blue system. Okay? So far, the Middle East, from Dubai on to what's happening in Syria, they all have been ruled by red values. Dubai is the healthy expression of red. Syria and what's happening with ISIS is the unhealthy expression of the same value system. So yes, it is a mosaic that is functional depending on where you're designing for. In Europe, the Europeans need to let off the surface expression of green and really come into yellow and then realize what damage their green views have caused the entire continent over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's another comment.
Yes.
Lawrence?
Lawrence is talking about unhealthy and healthy capitalism, and noting that people confuse the good with the bad in that area and smear all of capitalism as bad.
Yes.
And so orange has a bad reputation, especially with green above it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, orange has gotten a bad rap simply because of the last maybe 30 years of economic expression. You know, I talk about this in my work and my book. I call this the only money matters cycle, and I think I just wrote a post on it addressing the different things that are going on in our political system here. And when only money matters, you know, the people who hold money make decisions. It has become toxified because of that. The innovative use of money has repressed the true expression of capitalism. Capitalism is a system that encourages research and development. It is a system that encourages free thinking and the investment in free thinking values. It is a system that is far more complex than what every radical view today, especially the green system. The green system is absolutely toxic in pointing to areas that the orange system has dysfunction in, and because of its that high intelligence, it convinces less complex people that all of capitalism should be thrown out, when that is not the case. What these people don't know is this very thing that is making this conversation possible came from orange innovation.
Sure.
And so if it weren't for capital market making Google as rich as it is, none of this will be available. So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, because a few unhealthy expressions, because we need to save a few souls who are victim of just a very small part of the exposure to that system.
And there's another question here, again from Lawrence Gold.
Can we bring it up?
Yeah, okay. A wrinkle on our talk about transparency. He's saying that the TPP agreement has been characterized by secrecy, and which is, of course, not transparency yet. Do you have any reaction to that observation?
Well, I think the fact that it's been shrouded in secrecy is Obama's desperate reach out to leave a legacy. He's realizing that he only has 16 months left in his presidency, and he's definitely going to leave a legacy. Excuse me. He's going to leave a legacy with the Health Care Act, the Affordable Care Act. But he's also looking to leave a legacy in redefining what the future of economics look like. We still are dealing with the damage that the orange system has done to this culture. There are jobs and industries that are being disrupted in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs, and more attention should be focused on that. I think the president is coming strictly from the green values that say we're a global community. Well, guess what, Mr. President? We're not a global community. Before you embark on such a wide-ranging trade agreement, I would challenge him first to get China to stop artificially supporting its currency. You have to have proof that the playing field is level. The Chinese have little regard to the global economic framework as it exists today. They're looking to disrupt it, but they're looking to do so from a completely false basis of capitalism. So yes, I think the president is wrong in reaching out and thinking that we are there, that we are a global economy. That is not to say that how he defended it wouldn't come true, because union jobs, which has been the biggest argument by the Democrats, unions in this country are stigmatized. So the possibility that these jobs are going to stay and that the unions have been weakened, well, the unions here have been corrupt. The unions have mostly been identified by the red value system. So you don't blame Orange for picking up and setting up its factories in China. Okay? And the argument that the liberals are making, and especially I'm a little bit disappointed in Elizabeth Warren, who has a lot more, second-tier thinking than anyone else in Congress. I'm a bit disappointed in how green she has gotten in saying that the Pacific Trade Agreement will make jobs disappear. Those jobs are going to disappear. You cannot stop Orange from thinking strategically. They're going to run efficiency measures. They're going to consolidate. They're still going to put the stockholder ahead of anyone else till the real fundamental way changes at a structural level, not just at a surface manifestation that we're reaching out to the future and this is what the future looks like. Mm-hmm. Instead, we should focus on getting the ducks in the global community in order, making sure that they obey minimum trade requirements before we engage them in what the future is going to look like 30, 40, maybe 100 years down the line.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to ask a dumb question because I'm not really familiar with all that. What you are saying that we are still very much in the orange system and that we need to go into the green economic system?
Well, we're still very much suffering from the damage of the orange system, and I think we have to fix what's wrong with the orange system. We have to align it onto a healthy trajectory, so the green system will emerge in a healthy way. People who are critical of the current capitalist system don't realize that none of this would have been possible. None of the digital economy would have been possible without the capital infrastructure that was put in place in the last 50 years. And it was investment bankers who put that in place. It was the international, the Bretton Woods framework of finance that put a lot of the things we take for granted in place. That was healthy orange. Orange needs to return to that as a foundation for us to build that thick layer of green that we need, and then for green to naturally transition itself into the second tier yellow system.
Well, that brings up the question of how do we reform orange so that the green that emerges has a healthy base to work from?
Green is contributing to that quite a bit, Mark. Okay. What we're seeing happening is the disruption that the knowledge economy is causing is hitting green in a very quick way, and it just doesn't know what hit it. Look at the entire industries that we lost just in the last 2 decades. I mean, publishing now looks nothing like it did 20 years ago. I mean, there isn't a single Borders store that is still open around us. We used to have 8 of them. There isn't a single one available anymore. When I published my book, it would have been impossible to get it published 10 years ago or 15 years ago, simply because the powers were concentrated in different. So what you see happening is the different platforms that the digital economy has created have completely disrupted the way business gets done, and we're just beginning to see the beginning of that. So as green continues its disruption in a systemic way, into different sectors of our economy, it has to emerge into the yellow values. Okay. So, just to refer to something that I talk about a lot in my work and in my book, the primary driver of the green economic value system is the distribution of information and resources. Well, if you distribute, and it's the democratic distribution of information and resources. Well, if you distribute democratically information to ISIS on how to build a dirty bomb, that's not going to look good for the future of humanity. So those are the kind of things that we should be aware of. The green economy has to begin to quantify and functionalize its bits and bytes, so to speak, in order for us to emerge into a yellow economy that looks nothing like the orange economy we've had in the last 30 or 40 years. It'll be a lot more efficient, it'll be a lot more resilient, it'll be lean, and completely different than than anything we've seen. And I, in my work, I talk about the platform for functional capitalism, and I can talk about a little bit more about that if there aren't more pressing questions that you'd like for me to cover.
There are still questions, and I would highlight two of them. The one is Michael Thomas.
Thank you for answering my next inquiry on your opinion of the Greek issue. Are we ready for that?
One, and the other one maybe before. It's Scott who says, I am curious about your take on currencies such as Bitcoin. I think it fits better in the moment now.
Yeah, the Bitcoin question might be.
Let me talk about Bitcoins first, because that is a shorter subject than getting involved in the debate on Greece. Bitcoins. Okay, let me just tell you where I'm coming from on how I frame what Bitcoins means. In the history of money, if you go back 8,000 years ago, from the time it was incepted as a shekel, that was at the time 8,000 years ago reference to a bushel of wheat back in Mesopotamia. From the time that it was invented, it was a store of value that was a direct representation of productive output, meaning that money has historically been a representative of that blue fourth level system. You work 3 hours, you get paid for 3 hours. This is as blue as it gets. Okay? And suddenly, we went on a wild experiment with Reaganomics and the philosophies of Milton Friedman that said, only money matters for the future of economics, meaning that we have not really been exploiting everything that money can do. And so we went on this orange escapade that says, we can value corporations 2 or 3 times more than we value them now, based on virtual notions of what value is. I mean, no one held a standard to what value meant. And so all of a sudden you get this explosion in how things are being valued. And that was an experiment that, of course, resulted in the 2008 financial crisis. Well, meanwhile, on the other side, in Europe, Europeans used the euro as an agent of the green system. It can't be that. It has to remain a representative of productive output. Only its expression can change. And what you see with the Bitcoins is that's the early expression, knowing where technology is. The Bitcoin in its early emergence, and by the way, I wrote an article on this to the Huffington Post. If you go to the Huffington Post and just Google my name and Bitcoins, you will find it, or you can go to Memenomics.com and just go through the blog. But after the bankruptcy of Mount Gox in Japan, I wrote a piece about it, saying basically that unless whatever the new expression of money is, unless it's heavily regulated, it will be exploited by 2 value systems. The red value system that wants to make a quick buck without putting any of their money into it, which are those people, the naked traders that you see on every Forex exchange. And of course, the exploitive orange system that wants to take Bitcoins, make a big thing out of it, value it so high that it will be just another bubble in formation. So where the stages of Bitcoins are now, they're beginning to emerge into becoming that blue system that will hold accountability. So the idea that you don't have to have paper money is catching on, but the idea that it has to remain highly regulated and a part of that blue system is an absolute necessity for it to succeed.
Okay.
This is interesting.
Yes, it was.
So shall we go to ask you about Greece? I think this is
Well, I suppose well, it won't be the first time I'll be asked about Greece, nor would I be the first one to offer an opinion. But you know what, Mark and Heidi, instead of just offering an opinion that could polarize, other opinions, I think we need to take a step back and look at the value systems behind that whole dynamic. And to do that, we really have to begin with questioning the entire EU framework on integrating the continent. When you do economic, Elza last week talked about asymmetry in values.
Yes.
Well, no, that's not just with Israel and Palestine. There are asymmetry in economic values all throughout Europe, all throughout the world. There's economic asymmetry. There's huge economic asymmetry that we have here between states in this country here. So the first thing that you have to do from an economics policy perspective is to level the asymmetry between the contending states that want to be that want membership in the EU. So I would first fault the EU for blindly pursuing the maybe out of guilt because of the two world wars, maybe out of the self-appointed moral police of Europe, and that is France, telling everybody else what to do, and out of guilt, Germany, which 70% of the strength of that euro comes from the German economy. France drags Germany around, tells it, okay, you have to do this and you have to do that, and the German, out of guilt, agree to do it. But what we're forgetting is that monetary integration is the absolute last thing to do when you're integrating an entire continent and its economies. Greece, for the longest time, before they were members of the EU, were primarily a service economy. 80% of Greeks worked either in the government or in the service industry, which is tourism. Okay? Here we are 30 years later, they're looking at exiting the EU, and even when their GDP reached its height in 2009, still 75% of their economy came from service. Half of it in tourism, and half of it is with government jobs. Now, that's not how you design a resilient economy. There was absolutely no goal to seek economic diversification, and for that, I blame the EU. Okay? Now, that does not make the Greeks innocent from not doing what they had to do. Greece's government was a corrupt government. Very little has changed in unlodging that red that is a prerequisite for them to join, to maintain their membership. Okay? So they hid what their deficits were, they hid what they were doing, they cooked the books basically, and that's really, that can't be used as an excuse to say, well, guess what? We didn't do what the rules said we had to do. So I fault both parties, and just because our framework and the way we work with it, we always say that the culture with the higher complexity has the responsibility to help its compatriots in lower complexity. That doesn't mean you blindly give them money. That means you design a second-tier program to integrate them economically. So I would have had a lot more checks and balances. I would have said, look, an ideal approach would have been for Germany to say, wow, look at the Greek economy, it's not diversified. In order for them to be a robust, responsible member of the EU, we have to invest in maybe training them into industrial age values, showing them what 40-hour weeks are, set up some of our factories that manufacture simple parts that complement the German industrial complexity. That's where what I have started. Not, here's a checkbook, go fix your red and come back to us and we'll join you. Well, you give money to red and guess what? It's going to cover up where it's using it, pure and simple. And so I just wanted to give that perspective instead of defending this over that. But overall, it is the responsibility of the more complex culture, the more conscious culture, to do a resilient plan for development coming from second tier, not from green, not from orange that's exploitative. And I'm afraid that's where Germany and the EU came from. They came from those green values that say, hey, we need to have equality in the continent. And the Germans came from that old banking that views that if you owe a penny, you have to pay the penny back plus interest. That's just banking blue. That is as old as banking has been around. Okay? So you have that dynamic that's creating that stress, and therein lies the polarization.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I have two questions. One is, we are here in Italy. How do you see Italy? I guess more or less like Greece. I have to suspicion, because everyday experience is a little bit like this. And the other, definitely the German government is not on a second-tier level. What would you suggest? What can we do? I mean,
well, I think the German government is far ahead of any of the other governments in the EU. When it comes to concerns of a social capitalism system that they have, they are the envy of what I think the model in the United States should be. In their system, the government invites industry leaders, union leaders, educational leaders, basically all the stakeholders in the German culture to sit down and talk about the future of Germany. Well, nowhere else in the Western world do you see that. Maybe in some other European countries, but they come to it from green. This is more of a yellow design because it simply engages the entire nation about its future. I mean, it's Germans who decide that, we have too many college graduates. So we should direct some young people towards technical schools. This will never happen here. Everybody wants to direct kids towards a college degree. And here we are, we have kids with master's degree and $100,000 in debt who majored in philosophy who have absolutely no jobs. They work at, waiting tables at $8 an hour. So government engagement, and not just any government, smart government that's designed from that second level of governance is very important. It has to take account into all the stakeholders in the culture and what value systems they come from and how they should serve a superordinate goal. Germany has that superordinate goal, and that is to have social capitalism, and you can define it any way you want, but they're addressing it effectively. Those same values have to be expressed throughout the EU, and therein lies the problem. You're not going to get Greece to develop industrial age values overnight, and similarly with Italy. Italy is not as bad as Greece. They're heavily in debt, but they have an industrial base. They can innovate. They have far more resilience than the Greeks do. Their economy is quite a bit more diversified than the Greek economy is. And so they can supplement their different sectors if one sector collapses. With the Greek funding, with bailout money drying out, and 50% of the labor force working for the government, Greece is going to be facing a lot of economic hardships if they decide to exit.
Okay, thank you for the answer, because when you are in the middle of Italy and look downward, it seems a little bit like Greece. And thank you for your consideration about Germany. I'm German and I feel sort of proud. And actually, we always grew up with a sort of social democratic viewpoint, at least in my family. So I can relate to that. Thank you.
If you can get a message in for people in power in Germany, tell them to ease up on their blue.
Oh, I quite agree with that.
And it's also in the personal life. We have to do that.
And I quite agree with that too.
But we are sort of the end of the show. We still have some questions. I don't know. Do you have time? Shall we go a little over the time?
Sure.
Shall I bring up other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's ironic that we're speaking on this day. I have contractors in the house installing central air conditioning, which is indicative of 15 years ago no one needed air conditioning in San Diego, and now we're sort of like the last people on the block to install it, and it shows you that this global warming issue is here for real and it needs to be addressed seriously. And that's the kind of intelligence that we need to address what a next economic system needs to look like. This is happening. It's ominous, and there's no denying it. And so I just wanted to throw that in there because it complements what we'll be talking about.
Yeah, I would like to say we are still without air conditioning, and I have these green values. I don't want to destroy the atmosphere by adding the gases. So we are spreading.
Our next thing is to install solar panels. So
oh, I have them.
We have those, but they won't run the AC.
Okay, let's bring up another comment by John Freeman.
Wow.
Hello, John.
Yes.
Hey, has
my mate out in the across the pond.
Yes.
Yeah. And he says, masterful and lucid presentation. Thank you, Said.
Yeah.
And then we have another something by
Lawrence.
There are so many more. We cannot bring them up all.
Lawrence is saying the lower complexity compatriots must want the help and assistance offered by the higher complexity compatriots. The help offered, not the help preferred.
How can you make them must that? That's my question.
So the help offered, not the help preferred. Yeah. And unfortunately, you only, unless you can step back and look at the system from a functional perspective, and that means a few things. That means that you are not attached to any special interests in the first tier, and that you're really, your thinking is complex enough that you see that the only solution comes from the functional operation of the lower systems. Then and only then are you able to offer what they need, not what you think they need. They should tell you what they need. Your analysis of the economic situation in Greece or other members of that should have taken first place. And it should have been compared to, okay, how did we historically emerge? And see if Greece had the potential to emerge in similar ways, instead of just throwing money at Greece and saying, hey, here, you get rid of your corruption, develop your service industry better, and you'll be fine. And so it came from a banking perspective. It came from a perspective of that green value system, that we live on a continent, we should all have egalitarian and humanitarian rights, and we all share in the abundance of the continent. Well, fine, you need to, we can all share in the abundance of the continent, but you also have to have your own contribution to that abundance. You can't keep taxing the system till it dies. You have to reinvest in it. You have to refresh it. You have to constantly replenish what you use. And you can't have one user and one producer. Everybody has to be both.
Understand it right. When this is, I don't want to talk about politics here, no? But if Greece is a red system and red understands power, so Germany should use a little bit of power and tell them, you know, you do that.
That's a wonderful thing to do, Heidi. But you'll be amazed at the lashback that Germany will suffer from that. You know, I mean, the 800-pound gorilla in the room that no one's talking about here is the issue of war reparations. And,
war reparations.
Yes, and I think deep in the Greek psyche is the issue of, well, the Germans caused damage in World War II, while in World War I they were forced to pay reparations that might have, you know, righted their wrongs. They weren't made to do so at the end of World War II. And so in the back of their minds, they're victimizing themselves. That's a great thing about Red, is that it blames everyone else for its misery. And please, you know, I don't want to get emails about how dare you think of Greece as red. I'm talking about the economic system and the functional parts in it. Greece is purple, emerging into what the EU wants it to emerge into, advanced orange to green. Well, you can't go through those phases unless you pass through a healthy expression of red, a phase that builds those industrial value blues, what I talked about earlier, the running the trains on time, a reasonable and resilient manufacturing base, a diversified economy that you know, any economy that has 50% or more of its people working in government, there's definitely something wrong. That is as crony capitalism as what we have here in the States with corporations running the show. You can't have 50%. The ideal formula for healthy capitalism is a quarter to a third, no more than a quarter to a third of the population should work in government. You simply repress their innovative potential by holding them in blue jobs. And so it's a lot more complex than just giving it a label that the Greeks are red. They try to emerge into advanced orange and green, but you know, the theory is right. You cannot skip a stage, and that's what they're experiencing now, is that going through that stage. And of course, the Germans invoke their blue. You borrowed a penny, you have to pay it back with interest. And therein lies the challenge for the EU to look inward and revisit the issue of integration from an integral perspective, not just from the guilt of the green system that World War II left behind.
Yeah, we are still handling this problem personally and as a culture. I'm very aware of that, being German. I think at this point we say very much thank you.
Yeah, we have some unanswered questions, and perhaps you will be able to look at these that are posted on the event page and respond to some of them after we're off the air. But I think we're kind of at the end of the line for now.
Yeah, and I have changed our lower and upper third, and we want to remind you, first of all, the wisdomfactory.de, where you can get our newsletter and the free gift, an ebook. And there will come out many other ebooks, hopefully, if technology goes into my head enough. And there is another thing right on top of Mark, the bit.ly link, Wisdom Factory Gold. This is a free training coming up at the end of the month, done by Lawrence Gold.
I think we've seen that name elsewhere today.
We saw him here appear and having very good contributions. And he has developed a truly integral system of, how can we say what it is?
Oh, gosh. Of deconstructing the old stories we tell ourselves and replacing them with much more helpful ones.
Yes, and working on
release.
Yeah, and on the neural pathways, I would say.
That's right.
It's a very interesting thing. And if you want to be part of it, please go there and leave your name and your address, and we will tell you when it begins and where to go, because it won't be public. We want to have a safe space, so of a certain number of participants. And really try it out. It is free. It won't always be free, I guess, but this time it's free.
The plan is to eventually make money at it. Yeah.
Orange.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I don't think we can give away everything for free. So, but for a while, yes, and people need to know what it is about. And we had done some shows. You can go back and watch the shows. But this time, Lawrence wants to work with bigger groups. And that's why we invite you to be participant in that. Please come there. And then next week will be the last episode of our second season with Martin Shervington, and he will talk about the wisdom in social media, because he is a big person in social media on Google Plus mainly, and he has an academy where I'm part of and where I'm learning how to navigate all these things here. So come and watch our next show too. And our replays you can find on our YouTube channels, but also on our website, thepowerofrelationship.com. And having said that, thank you to all watchers, and excuse us that we couldn't bring up all comments. And the very big thank you to Said.
This has been great, Said. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark and Heidi. This is wonderful.
Okay.
Very, very nice. And you know, for me who are not understanding all these things, it has opened a little more my mind. Thank you very much. And I think to many other people's English people too. So thank you, and see you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.